What's up everybody, last raid guide of the expansion, and today we're taking a look at Ny'alotha the Corruptor on Mythic difficulty. I'll be going over most of the mechanics, how to deal with them, and our overall tactic for this fight. Due to the nature of this encounter, this guide will probably turn out to be a long one, so I will put timestamps in the description below, unless you want to hear me rant on and on. So for this encounter you want 2 tanks, 4 healers and 14 DPS. And the big thing setup wise is immunities. You want to be able to cover at least 10 immunes within a 4-minute window-ish. So not necessarily 10 immunes in total, just so you can cover those immune soaks. So for example, rogues, paladins, hunters can each do 2 sets of immunes, whereas a mage for example cannot, as their CD is too long. So we for example had 1 rogue, 2 paladins, 1 hunter and 1 mage per immunity soak, and we do 2 immunity soaks in total. You can do more immunity soaks if you have more immunities, but it really isn't mandatory. And shockingly, fire mages and destrolocks are great for this encounter. Gateways helps a lot as well. Disc priest, holy paladins are awesome as well. And generally, less melee is better for the last phase due to uptime and space. We had 4 melee DPS and 2 holy paladins, and space was tight. Now, with that said, let's check out what's new on Mythic. So a lot of things have been rearranged, few things added, and the first phase has been removed, and a so-called secret phase has been added on top of this. But let's start off with the new mechanics, or rather changes to pre-existing ones. First of all, your extra action button, the Heart of Azeroth, now only restores 25 sanity over 4 seconds, but to everyone within 8 yards of you when you use it, has to be fully channeled to get the full 25 sanity from it. And it's only usable once during the fight, so managing your sanity is a lot more important now. There will be a few key moments where you will need to use the necks before/during some abilities and when everyone can be stacked in them. And I will go over all of these later in the guide. Next out is Paranoia. It now targets every player in the raid except tanks. Thank you for that. Before this change, I may have killed one of our healers with Paranoia and he may have called me an absolute goon. Following this, in phase 1, when you kill a Corruptor tentacle, 1 to 2 psychophage adds will spawn in the Vision realm, aka Psychus realm, and when you kill one of the exposed synapses in the Vision realm, 1 to 2 psychophage adds will spawn in the Living realm. These adds will start casting Devour Thoughts anytime a player is near them. A 10-yard AoE around the ad, which deals around 300k shadow damage and drains 10 sanity if you're hit. Upon death, they will leave a small swirl on the ground, approx 5 yards, that deals around 300k shadow damage and drains 30 sanity to anyone hit, so don't stand in this. And when you kill Psychus, the Shattered Ego no longer stuns any tentacles that are up, meaning all tendies needs to be dead before this happens, so you get maximum uptime on Ny'alotha. And in phase 2, you will now get 2 Thought Harvesters instead of 1 per spawn. Their Harvest AoE drains 300 sanity split among everyone, up from 200, and if it fails to hit at least 5 players, it drains 100 sanity from everyone in the raid. On top of this, as with everything on Mythic, it also hurts a lot more, like a lot. And lastly, we have the secret phase. During phase 2, a gateway spawns that takes you into the Chamber of Heart, where you will fight a void spawn annihilator. During this, countermeasures will spawn around the room, or bombs if you will. These bombs will need to be disarmed by players clicking on them. However, clicking one will instantly consume your extra action button next, so you cannot use it after to restore sanity to the raid. If you've already used your neck earlier, you cannot interact with the bombs. If a bomb goes off, which a few will due to not having unlimited necks, it will deal lethal damage within its large yellow circle and fall off damage outside of it, meaning the further away you are from it, the less damage it deals. Even so, it will still hit for around 350 to 400k to everyone in the raid at max range from it. The void spawn will also cast Dark Matter, spawns a ton of purple swirlies on the ground. Don't stand in these, dance. He will also apply Annihilation on 2 players every now and then. These players will get a large circle around them, and after 8 seconds they will drop the circle, and like 2 seconds after it will explode, dealing a ton of damage. Also supposed to detonate bombs if placed on top of them. Nothing we tried, we felt it was best just to drop them away from the raid and away from bombs. And tanks will also get hit by something called Event Horizon, placing a huge healing absorb on them, approximately 2 million, and a large purple circle around them, same as Annihilation. When the absorb is healed off, they will drop this circle, and then it works the same as Annihilation. And with the risk of sounding like clickbait, I will go over this in more detail later as well. Apart from this, as with any mythic encounter, everything has more health, deals more damage, and due to this, some things you might be used to doing on heroic simply won't work. The fight, however, is very scripted. There are some RNG moments, but mostly scripted. So because of this, I will go over this fight step by step, and hopefully it will all make sense in the end. With that said, let's start off with phase 1 and with the Psychus phase. As I mentioned earlier, on Mythic you don't start with a Psychus phase, however you will still get 2 of them to deal with during it. So you want to split the raid in 2 for each set of tentacles that spawns, as well as 2 Psychus groups. So even split for left and right side basher tentacles, then we used 6 DPS plus 1 healer and a tank for the first Psychus, mainly melee DPS for this one, then 2 healers, 1 tank and 6 DPS for the second set of Psychus, which was mainly range DPS, due to the damage taken while moving that is in effect during second Psychus. So this means not everyone actually has to do the Psychus phase. If you want our Psychus splits, hit me up on Facebook, or if you're a patron, I will post it in the Discord as well. With that said, let's go over this step by step. On pull, start dealing with the tentacles and prepare for your first paranoia. In phase 1, sanity management is really important, as necks are limited and you need around 75 sanity in order to not go insane when you're down dealing with Psychus. As soon as the first set of tendies are dealt with and the paranoia is over, move on to the next set of tendies. After these, the left side will have their mind gate spawn and it's time for Psychus. It's important that the basher dies in time so you can all go down. Ideally, you want all tentacles on your side to be dead before you go down, but if 1 or 2 spiky tentacles are up, they can be dealt with by the people not going down into the Psychus realm before they join up with the right side team. With that said, let's take a look at the first Psychus. I've seen a few different routes for both Psychus phases, but this is the one we ended up using. Just hit me up if you want a copy of the pick. The only thing new to deal with here is the psychophage ads. These needs to be picked up and tanked, but also needs to be avoided as soon as they start their AoE. They can be interrupted and CC'd for a bit, so stuns, fears, knockbacks, etc. to keep them from casting and to interrupt them mid-cast. So I recommend having a CC rotation for these as you work on the different synapses, to keep melee from getting blown up. As a tank, you can also trigger this in between synapses to get a bit more time on them before they cast again, simply by moving into them in between the synapses before pulling Psychus close to whichever one you're killing. Tanks, also keep in mind that the range for the synapse debuff is pretty big, so you don't have to have Psychus right on top of it as it dies. Small ads are also not a priority at all, so don't waste any DPS on these. And as far as the creeping Anguish goes, for this Psychus, drop first between first and second synapse, second creeping Anguish between fourth and fifth, and last Anguish is kinda whatever, just don't drop it on top of your bodies. The goal is to get Psychus down before the timer for the third basher tentacle in the living realm is done. Keep in mind though, you don't want to kill him too soon either, as the living realm will be working on their current basher and small ads, so if you get out too soon, you'll actually lose a lot of boss damage. On top of this, you want to kill Psychus without using too many DPS cooldowns down there. You need them to burn the boss as soon as you get out. When we started our progress, we blasted everything we had and then some, and as players got more used to the fight, we started taking away more and more DPS cooldowns, so that we just managed to beat Psychus before the new set of bashers. On top of this, you also want to bloodlust both in the Psychus realm around the 2-minute mark or 2.10 minute mark, and in the normal realm around the 2.10 minute mark. The latter for Psychus realm means less Psychus damage but more boss damage. With that said, let's hop back to the living realm. As soon as the first Psychus group enter their mind gate, finish off any stray tendies and move on to the next set of bashers. Deal with these, then get ready for neurons, psychophage ads, paranoia, and a mind grasp. Same principle as heroic for the neurons, nuke him down so you don't get dragged through the purple zone zones by the grasp. You can banish neurons to keep them from ever growing / needed to be DPS'd. I've also heard you're supposed to be able to stun them with longer stuns like Hammer of Justice to keep them from growing as well, but nothing I've personally tried. You want to deal with at least 3 rows or lines of neurons to safely have enough space for the mind grasp. Make sure to find your paranoia buddy fast and move into position for the grasp. You don't need to be all the way in the back, so you can make 2 rows of paranoia pairs and still be safe with the grasp, meaning 1 pair all the way in the back and another pair in front of them, or reversed if it's going the other way. And consistency really is key here. Assign DPS to specific neurons, same with CC like banish, so that they always nuke down and CC the same neurons. Will make this part go a lot smoother. During this you will also get psychophage adds from the Psychus realm. Tank, just make sure to pick him up, tank him a bit away from the rest of the raid. As you're about to get grasped, you want to stun / silence the adds if they are in your path or any player's path for that matter. We used solar beams, fears and or stun totem from our lovely shaman for this. Roots and frost novas works as well. We also had a lot of issues during progression with me suddenly stopping in my tracks as I was being grasped. It seemed to happen often when I get hit by an ad mid-grasp, so I get dragged, then just stop mid-grasp on top of 4 to 6 ads casting their AoE, and bye-bye all of my sanity, or I just flat out die. Still not sure what caused it, but stuns and silence on the ads was the answer at least. If you don't stop mid-grasp, it's usually fine to glide over an ad, as their AoE triggers when you touch him, but you glide over him before it finishes. Other than that, also avoid killing any of the small ads right before the grasp, as if you're unlucky you will glide over the swirl and lose 30 sanity. As soon as the mind grasp is done, move over to the new basher that will spawn right after it. During this you will have a ton of small ads to deal with. I found the best way to deal with them was to gather them up, then circle around the basher constantly until all of them were dead. Shortly after this basher dies, the first Psychus team should get done and everyone should start moving towards the left side of the room looking at the minimap. You want all DPSers to be ready to blast the instant that Psychus dies, so as soon as the boss can be damaged, you're already blasting. You can track Psychus HP if you're upstairs to get a rough idea when you need to swap to boss. And you should aim to get Ny'alotha below at least 88% during this. Also, during this burn, you should use your first neck to restore some of the sanity. This should not be a DPS, as they should be blasting away. As soon as the burn is over, new tendies will spawn. Same thing here, split the raid, but this time it will be reversed-ish. So looking at Ny'alotha, the team that didn't go down to Psychus goes to the left now, and the team that did go down goes to the right. And you backtrack in that order, and it's pretty much rinse repeat from here on out. Shortly after the basher spawn, you will get a paranoia, just like on pull. You deal with it the same way. Deal with these set of tendies and then one more, and it's time for second Psychus. For this Psychus, as soon as the tentacles were down, we gathered next to the mine gate and did a countdown, 3, 2, 1, so everyone enters at roughly the same time. And this is to avoid Psychus aggroing someone early and running the long way around the soft, which complicate things a bit. Make sure that you check around the mine gate zone for blood pools so you don't die or lose a ton of sanity right as you get down to Psychus. You can still move a bit after stepping into the mine gate, so use that to move out or away from blood pools. We played around with routes and setups for this one a lot until we found something that worked, and again, if you want a copy of this, just hit me up. Anyways, as soon as you're out of the mine gate, we had a gateway going from a bit in front of the mine gate to the side of the first synapse we kill. So as soon as we got out of the mine gate, everyone used a personal defensive CD and clicked the gateway. Try and be at least 5 yards spread as much as possible due to the probe mined from synapses, as it chains to anyone within 5 yards. Tank drags Psychus close to the first synapse. DPS and healers all nuke down the first synapse, as this one needs to die really fast. Pretty much within a second or two of Psychus reaching it. As soon as the boss has a stack, start dragging it to the second synapse and drop the creeping Anguish in between synapse 1 and 2 or on top of the second one. Tank also needs to pick up all the small adds while doing this. I have the luxury of being a brewmaster for progression, so statue did a lot of work for me, but this should be very doable even if you're not a brewmaster with this route, as a lot of the adds will kinda gather near the first and second synapse. Keep in mind that as you have a swarm of small ads following you, it's important to trigger their AoE as often as possible in order to not run out of space due to ads AoE, so that melee can still DPS if you have any in that realm. Following this, drop the next creeping anguish around or in between synapse number 4 or 5, then drop the last creeping anguish around the last synapse, then move Psychus to your corpses. And same thing here as with the previous Psychus, you want to finish it before the third basher timer gets done for the outside peeps. But again, not too fast as you lose boss uptime due to that. So again, play around with cooldowns, and if you start killing it off too fast, take away cooldowns and keep doing that. And back to reality.
Watch your profanity.
During this second set of Psychus, it's pretty much the same as for the last outside group. You will deal with a set of tentacles, then neurons, small ads, paranoia, mind grasp, followed by another basher. So not much to add there, really. Keep small ads controlled, use stuns, fear, knockbacks, etc. to keep them in check. And as soon as the second Psychus is about to die, get ready to blast the boss again. This time we gather on the south side looking at the minimap, and during this we use 3 necks in order to get everyone's sanity back up, hopefully around the 100 mark. And rejoice, you're at the halfway point now, god damn! You want to come out of this burn around 76% if possible, aka when the shattered ego ends. A few seconds after this you will have your first harvester ads spawn. These will always spawn on your tanks, so tanks make sure to cuddle up on top of each other real close to the boss, so they spawn stacked next to Ny'alotha. Damage should still be on Ny'alotha, and cleave should do most of the heavy lifting on these ads. Everyone in the raid needs to soak their harvest AoE, and shortly after it you will get your first Anguish. With that said, let's pause this a bit and talk Anguish real quick. This is where the drama starts, the yelling, the question marks, and the so-called random death. On Mythic, you can't stack with these because they do splash damage around you, and the puddles you drop will grow a bit when they've been dropped, and again anytime the boss casts Anguish, so they keep growing and space becomes a real issue. So every single player in the raid needs kind of a predetermined spot for each and every Anguish so that they don't cleave, and so that classes that needs to reach the boss can. Because of this, there's a pretty specific pattern you want to drop these in, and it roughly looks like the zones in this picture. Every zone is a different set of anguishes, and within these every player has their own spot that they run to when they drop them off. Holy Paladins should be hugging the boss for zones 2 to 5, tanks behind them, then low mobility classes like Shadow Priests, and furthest back high mobility like mages, demon hunters, etc. The one big thing about this that I can say is practice. Practice and practice some more. Once you've determined your spots in each anguish spread, practice them. Super fun, I promise. We did this less than I wanted to, but still spent quite some time doing it over and over again. Just calling out Anguish 1, everyone runs in position. Anguish 2, everyone runs in position, etc. And I recommend this solely because you will wipe on this. And you don't want to spend time learning it once you actually get to phase 2. So pizza practice for everyone. Apart from that, the biggest thing I can say is use the space in the back and don't try and drop off new anguish right next to an old one. It will grow, you will need to move, and the person next to you might not react to that. You might get hit by the old anguish, which really hurts and drains your sanity, or you get splashed by another player as you try to move from it. Unless you're a tank. Tanks stack on each other for each anguish, damage doesn't matter to you. So with that said, back to the harvester. You want to use one more neck right after the first harvest AoE, and then you'll get your first anguish. Spread out in the back, and as soon as that anguish is dropped, you need to start running to the right because your first set of eye beams will start shortly after. These will always go to the left. Try and be far to the right following one of these eyes, and as it finishes you should be back where you stacked for the second burn, roughly. As soon as these eyes are done, it's time for the second anguish, and your first set of harvesters should be dead by now before their second harvest AoE goes off. Spread out, then start running to the right again, and you will get paranoia followed by mind grasp. For the mind grasp, again, make 2 rows so you don't need to spread too far and too thin around the room. We had everyone pop personals after this mind grasp as well, and as soon as the grasp is done you will get a new set of anguishes and a new set of harvesters. These harvesters spawn like 1 sec before the anguishes drop, drop, and they need to get away from the pools into cleave range of the boss before they start casting their harvest. Tanks should be stacked for the Anguish, then just have one tank smack him as soon as they spawn and then run into melee. If they touch any player, they will start casting harvest. This also seemed to get triggered by things like totems, statue, pets, and even gateways, although not 100% sure of that one. But we had numerous attempts where they spawned, then right as they normally start to run into melee, they just start casting harvest in the middle of the Anguish, and the only things that have been near him at those points have been either of the above, so keep that in mind. And you want everyone in the raid to soak these harvests, and you want to use 2 necks a bit into this cast. We had both our tanks use their necks here. After this harvest, it's Anguish into eye lasers, and the best overlap ever. The eyes spawn just as you drop the Anguishes. The eye lasers will always go to the right, but the initial beams can kind of spawn wherever from the boss, meaning possibly right into where you're dropping off your Anguishes. You have like half a second to react after dropping your pool, so the biggest thing I can recommend is if it spawns really bad, move, even if it means dropping Anguish further out than what is ideal or closer to old pools you might take a tick from them. You will die if you get hit by the beams here, since you'll most likely get feared into the old Anguish, and that overlap cost us so many wipes. And it's all about not dying at this point, to be honest. Pro tip. Either way, assuming you all survive and everyone is happy, keep moving far right during and after these beams. You will get a new set of ads, Paranoia with Harvest, then new beams. This Harvest will be your first immune. The 5 immune players needs to be in both the Harvest, but still 5 yards spread to not take sanity damage. And players linked to them just needs to be next to the Harvest to minimize damage. Following this, you will get eyes moving to the left. Make sure that you and your Paranoia buddy are on the same side of the beam, or sad times ahead. Assuming everyone survived, you can now breathe for a couple of seconds. Keep the ads next to the boss, nuke Ny'alotha, cleave ads, make sure they both die before the second harvest goes off, or bye-bye sanity. As soon as the ads are dead, full nuke on Ny'alotha and prepare for the secret phase. The gateway leading to this will always spawn in the same location far in the back. Make sure to have a warlock gateway going from the boss to chamber gateway. You will use this to enter faster and to get to the boss faster after. You will have like 10-15 seconds of nothing happening apart from the gateway spawning, so simply burn boss, click chamber gateway as late as possible. Tank should go in like a second ahead of everyone else just to make sure that the ad doesn't smack anyone. For this phase you'll need 11 necks available just to deal with the bombs alone, hence all the sanity minimaxing in previous phases. For the first set of bombs you click 2 bombs, leave 1 furthest away from the raid. Second set click 3 bombs, third set click 3, leaving the furthest one up, fourth click 3, leaving furthest bomb up. As soon as you get down, stack up to make healer's life easier and use 2 necks. Make sure everyone is completely topped before each bomb detonates, and as soon as the first bomb detonates and you're healed, spread for the first dark matter. Make sure not to get hit by the swirlies. Tanks, make sure to swap on Event Horizon, and debuff tank move out of the raid to get the absorb healed off and drop the circle away from raid and bomb. Same goes for players that gets targeted by annihilation. Stack up again for the next bomb detonation, and then you want to finish the mini boss just as it starts to cast dark matter again. If you leave sooner than that, you will blow up, and if he spawns the next set of bombs, you will blow up. Even if you click the gateway and you're on your way out, you'll still die. So as you can see here, we get 1 spawn of the swirlies and then mini boss dies and we go out. You can kill like 2-3 sec before or after, but it's a good indication of when it's safe. And as soon as you click the gateway to get out, you can press auto walk or just hold W to start walking during the tiny cutscene. If you do this as soon as you click the gateway, you will end up next to the boss when the cutscene is done. Or you can use a mouse over macro like on Carapace for the gateway and spam that as you're getting out to instantly gate to the boss. Tanks especially need to make sure that they are next to the boss when the cutscene ends, because right after it a new set of ads spawns and you do not want them to spawn at the gateway, you want them to spawn at the boss. Side note, after the secret phase, if you're near full sanity, sanity drains matter very little, so no need to be super careful during paranoias, since you're going to lose all your sanity fairly soon anyways for the final burn. Anyways, ads on boss, everyone's nuking away, raid soaks this harvest and drop Anguish off to the left next to the old Anguish pools. Then start running right and you get a new set of beams which will also go to the right. Following this beam you will get another set of Anguish. These you want to place on the right side further in the back and nothing in melee. You don't want to use up any melee space at all for Anguishes at this point, as it will wreck you during the last burn. Followed by this Anguish, you'll get Paranoia into Mind Grasp. Deal with it the same way as before. Following this, another set of Anguishes and a new set of Harvesters during. Anguishes in the back, ideally tanks on top of each other, spawn the adds, then get them closer to the boss. No damage whatsoever is needed on these adds, as they will be kept alive until the boss dies. This harvest is immunity soaked. Following it, another set of Anguishes, again far in the back. More beams and your last set of harvesters spawning during the beams. Tanks make sure to be near each other during the beams to spawn those adds close. Everyone apart from the tanks should get back to boss ASAP and start nuking. We left one tank out with all 4 adds, poor old me, and let them all cast their harvest without anyone soaking it to make everyone in the raid drop their sanity to 0 at the same time for the final burn. Do or die! Or mind control. Shortly after this, you get your last set of beams, which will travel right. Make sure to be on whichever side that gives you the most space, which doesn't require you to run out in the Anguish, like this schmuck right here. I promise, no panic here whatsoever. This is also why you don't drop any Anguish near melee for the last Anguishes, to get more space for the beams. And we played our Anguishes not too great here, so you can end up with a lot more space than what we have. Following this, you also want to Bloodlust again right as it comes back off cooldown, so around 12 min or 12-10 minute mark, depending on when you lusted in phase 1. Keep in mind that Bloodlust won't be up for the entire burn, so use second pot a bit before if you're using, say, Unbridled to get the most out of it. And I think that pretty much covers it. Feels like I've written a book here. A lot of steps to cover, so I'm sorry for that. Main focus point for this fight, I'd have to say, is getting used to Paranoia, getting used to Psychus routes and how much damage you need on Psychus, or rather what DPS cooldowns you need for it. As well as Anguishes and beams during the last phase. Secret phase is a bit of a joke, to be honest, but put time into Psychus setup / route so everyone knows what to DPS, how to move, and practice the Anguishes pizza party. And above all, really be consistent. DPS the same targets every time. Don't swap between some tries nuking Psychus, some tries doing synapses, hit and crowd control the same neurons, move to the same location, etc. Just be consistent. With that said, if you have any questions or run into any issues during your progression, hit me up on Facebook or become a patron. Finishing off this tier, it's come to my attention that I can't talk, and I've been saying Patreons instead of patrons. So here's to you, Melora, you absolute goon. As a patron, you will get access to my Discord, where you can find things like weak auras, healing notes, and a ton of awesome people helping each other out during progression, and it's the fastest way to get a hold of me. Seeing as it's the last raid guide for the tier, I'ma take some time and talk about the Stankie Discord. Thank you all so much for the support and for the amazing little community, or whatever you want to call it, that it has become. It is so much fun, and it gives me a ton of joy to see all of you guys and gals helping each other out, answering questions, supporting each other, and memeing around at all hours of the day and night. So not what I had in mind when I started this, but it has been so far one of the best parts of everything. So again, I cannot thank you all enough. Keep it up. And also a huge shout out to Broccolis on the Stankie Discord for all your help and effort with answering so many people's questions, supplying notes and other things. It has helped me out so much. And of course, shout out to all the Loot for the Win goons helping out in the Discord or with footage for the guides. Now, enough ranting from me, tired of my own voice by now. But as always, if you like this video, please hit that subscribe button, leave me a like, and ring that notification bell. Thank you all so much for watching and for all your support throughout this expansion. I will see you all during the alpha / beta of Shadowlands, if I ever get it, that is.
Yes! Come on! I'd like to point out that Lenka got absolutely smoked on HPS.